Hello, Slicey Dicers. This is Brian with a little discussion video for you today. What is expensive anymore? It's 2020. There are so many great budget knives out this year. What's expensive? Part of the reason why I'm doing this is lots of times when I review an expensive knife, even a knife that I don't consider to be that expensive, I get complaints in the comments saying, nice knife, can't afford it. Well, thank you for sharing. But I'm sorry you can't afford it, but still, I'm going to review it. I do the gamut of things. I understand that when it's a, $500-600 knife, I completely get it. I don't do customs here. We're not going to be talking about customs on here. I just don't review a lot of customs. And when you're getting into a custom, you've thrown value out the window. You just want what you want, and that's super cool for you. But I don't review them because I don't really have that much of a desire to have a full-on custom, and I don't think a whole lot of people who watch this channel are really into customs either. But I digress. But I get those comments on a $120 knife, which I don't consider to be expensive at all. I consider it to be a good value for $120, and I still get the comments like, I can't afford it. Like I'm a jerk for having reviewed it. I'm going to keep reviewing stuff like that. But yes, there are a lot of budget options out there, so I kind of understand it. We're going to go through a whole lot of stuff here. We're going to talk about a few outlier bargains, what it means to be expensive versus worth it, the U.S. price increases, budget versions of expensive knives, how you can go crazy optioning up a knife and you're never gonna get the money back, and just perceived expense. Some knives that people think are expensive and really aren't, and what makes people think that. So let's start first talk about some budget knives. So all these 5 knives on the table, some of these you may not even consider budget yourselves. Like this is a young Kaiser Youngest, they're $64. Some people don't consider that to be budget. I definitely do. I think kind of my line now is like $75, $100. Anything under that is kind of budget. Yes, there are some very inexpensive knives you can pick up from less than reputable sources for 10 or 15 bucks. We're not talking about those. I don't review those. A lot of those companies are less than reputable. They may get a bit too much inspiration from other companies, I guess is the nice way to say it. So I don't review those. So these are all mainstream companies. And you can get a Kershaw for $12 at Walmart, and that's completely fine as well. But let's just start these are some of the newer ones. Well, the Atmos is kind of old, but I love the Atmos a lot, so I put it. Kershaw Atmos, $32, 8CR13 MOV, want steel, but it's still very lightweight, really cool knife, and it's got a little bit of faux carbon in it, and I just really like the Atmos a lot. And for the price, it's an excellent budget knife. A new one for this year, the Civivi Dogma. $48, really nice knife, D2 steel, especially in some of the other collar combos. It looks really great. You can get a copper one now that's really classy looking. I like the clip point blade. I guess I got 2 clip points on here. Didn't mean to do that, but really, really great knife. That usual Civivi action, nice deep carry clip, what you'd expect. A huge bargain this year, which I've not done a full review on yet, but it's going to be really positive. This is the CJRB RIA. $34, and for $34, wow, this thing is awesome. 12C27N steel. This is the carbon fiber version. I honestly kind of would have preferred the G10, but beggars can't be choosers. CGRB did send this to me. Super slicey blade, really good action, awesome to carry, super light, and as I'm missing that thumb stud, as you'll see in the review, that's the one flaw with it. That thumb stud takes a minute to get used to, but a really, really cool knife. $34. What more do you need than that? And again, the Kaiser Youngest, really nice knife. I really like the blade shape on it. This is the micarta version, but yeah, Bowler N690 steel, really nice steel. That's another thing you're seeing down in the lower ends. I mean, with the exception of the Kershaw, you've got some pretty darn good steels. N690 is good stuff, and Ergos are really cool, and it's just a bit unique looking. If you want something with a bit of flash, they come in G10 versions as well. Last year's budget knife of the year winner, this is the Steelwool Shaula in D2, and just a really great knife. The action on this thing is just silly. Most of all you see here are running on bearings. You get so many great new budget options out there. So I can understand if you're just a budget knife collector. Yeah, I could do that. If I didn't have this channel and I was a bit slightly more broke than I am, it wouldn't take much. And just to be a budget knife collector, yeah, you can keep yourself happy just with budget knives. You don't need to do any more than that. Which brings us on to our next thing, kind of a tag onto this. Also, sometimes there are some special edition, just outlier bargains, and we'll talk about those next. So I think two knives that I have right now that are really indicative of this kind of outlier bargain thing I'm talking about are the Kershaw Bare Knuckle in 20 CV, which is a Smoky Mountain Knife Works exclusive, and the Civivi Fracture, which is kind of a customer appreciation thing that's not actually out yet, but it's going to go in 5 minutes. They're $28.50. This is only $100 in 20 CV. Both crazy bargains, but you're not going to be able to get them all the time. Kershaw does a lot of these. USA Made Blade does some really cool, like they've done the Knockout and stuff in 20 CV. Some other companies have done special editions in M390 and things. Kershaw is not afraid to make stuff in fancy, some of their more budget models in fancier steel. But 20 CV in this, that is a genuine super steel, one of the best you can get. It still has that great action of the bare knuckle, and they're $100. Now, SMKW is doing a really good job of keeping these in stock, I will say. This is one that maybe not be much of an outlier because they've been in stock since I rushed to get one of these, and they're still in stock. And there's a black blade version. Sometimes one or the other version's out of stock, but they seem to be reordering them regularly. And sometimes they're on sale for even less. I've seen them for like $80, which is insane. For 20 CV in a really well-constructed USA-made knife, that's pretty insane. The Fracture, like I said, they did it as kind of a customer appreciation thing. You'll see my full review of this closer to when they actually are available on August 15th. But they're going to be gone like that, I'm sure. They are one and done. It's a special run, but 8CR 14 MOV steel, nothing to write home about there. But just really, really cool slip joint knife. Still all that same Civivi quality. G10 scales, they're not fancy plastic. That same nice deep carry clip with the recessed screws and everything. And it's just a really cool knife. Just a one-hand open slip joint. And it's a really cool thing for them to have done. Very slicey blade. But like I said, you'll see these. You'll see, I even put some of the Spydercos in this range, even though Spyderco is not known for their dollar value, their bang for the buck lately. You do see some of the, like your Delicas and Enduras and Dragonflies and stuff in amazing super steels for like $4 more than they usually cost. And I guess you can apply that to a lot of the Spyderco sprint runs, but I'm just talking in the kind of budget outliers, those lower end, fancy plastic handle Japanese knives, Japanese made knives. You do get some amazing values there. So there are a few outlier, just crazy bargains that just pop out of nowhere that you got to keep your eye out for. And next, we're going to talk about what does it mean to be expensive versus just worth it. Okay, so I have a variety of knives laid out here. I would say the four to the left, which are the Hinderer XM24, they go for about $525. This is one of the special edition vintage series with the 012 steel blade. But the standard one's about $525. You have the Spartan Harsey folder, about $460. The Demco Mg8020, which I said there's going to be no customs on here. This is pushing it. This is kind of in that mid-tech sort of version. This is a machine ground blade, but everything else is hand assembled and everything. And you have the large Chris Reeve and Cosi with the Tanto blade and the micarta inlays for about $550. So $450, $550, $460, $525. I don't think most real knife enthusiasts would argue that these are just worth it. They're expensive, yes, but what does expensive mean versus just worth it? I think anyone who's actually held any of these four knives and actually used one, even if you decide it's not worth it for you to own a knife that expensive, which I completely get it. It's a tool. You might not want to, maybe you really beat on your knives and you just say, I'm never going to pay more than $50 for a knife. I totally get that because you know you're going to break it. But I think if you are a knife enthusiast and you know a lot about construction of knives and what good feels like, all four of these feel really good. All four of these, you pick them up. This feels like $525 all day long to me. It just does. This feels like more than $450 to me, honest. I'm just in love with this thing. The Mg8020 is just, it's so cool. But I do love this one a whole lot. The Spartan Harsey, again, if it was $600, I probably still would have gotten it. It's just, I do love the way it feels. It just feels so solidly constructed. Same with the Chris Reeve. Now you're going to hear complaints like, for example, you hear about Chris Reeve all the time. Oh, he hasn't done anything new in however many years. The company's stagnant. A, they have. And B, use one, hold one. You open the freaking box, you'll understand. You'll understand why they cost what they cost. None of the 4 of these do I ever put my hand and think, oh, I shouldn't have paid that for it. Now, the outlier here off to the side. Oh, an upshot on all these too. They're all USA made. They're all made by small companies. If I have to call with a warranty complaint about any of these, I know it's going to be taken care of. In most cases, I know the first name of the person I'm going to be calling to get it taken care of. So they're all made by a small company. They're all at least pretty much hand assembled. You know you're getting, you know where your money's going is what I'm saying. Now with customs, like I said, there's no customs on here because that's you want something fancy, and that's great, good for you. But I'm just not a custom guy, so we're not going to get into the perceived value of customs. But this last one, I think, is a perfect example of expensive or worth it, and kind of the perceived value therein. This is the Benchmade Anthem, $463, well within the price range of all these other knives here. It's made by Benchmade. It's not made by a small company. Reeve is the largest of all these, but it's still not nearly as big as Benchmade, not in the same stratosphere, as Benchmade. So you're paying $463 for a full-on just custom knife or production knife, like the Harsey and the Hinderer. They're production, yes, but they're in batches. They come and go. They're not nearly as the production status as something like the Anthem. They make a lot of these. You are getting a full titanium integral with a 20 CV blade. Materials at least as good, if not better, than most of the knives here. But it says Benchmade on it. It doesn't have a prestigious name. It doesn't say Demco. It doesn't say Reeve. It doesn't say Spartan. It doesn't say Hinderer. Not that Benchmade has a terrible name or anything, but it is a fairly common brand. So is it worth it to spend $460 on a Benchmade? Well, in this case, I would say this isn't a Benchmade. It says Benchmade on it. It's made at the Benchmade factory by Benchmade people with Benchmade thoughts in their Benchmade minds. But it does not feel like a Benchmade. It's completely different. It's one of those things you just got to get your hands on. Whenever I hold this knife, do I feel like it's worth the price that it costs? Yes, I do. But is everyone going to feel that way? No. Are you losing a bit of prestige having this in your pocket instead of one of these? Yeah. If you pull it out and someone knows what Benchmade is, and they'd be like, oh, my brother has a Benchmade or whatever. They're not going to realize that this is not your normal Benchmade. And Benchmade's not the only company that does this. Spyderco does some really, really high-end stuff as well. Hell, even CRKT took a swing at it, with a shock that was really expensive. Everybody takes a swing every now and then. And I don't mind them doing that. And I think this is the best swing that these companies have taken. The higher-end, really expensive Spydercos, I've never really loved. Like the Nirvana and stuff just didn't blow my skirt up. But I love the Anthem. And I think most people who have the Anthem love it and think it's worth it. I had one, sold it, and bought another one. Like, that's how much I like it. I can't give a better testimonial than that. But, yeah, it's just that perceived value of expensive versus worth it, where I think most people think these are worth it. And I think people look at knives like this and like the Nirvana and things like that as just expensive. Secondary market on stuff like, some of the really high-end discontinued Spydercos will disagree with you, because they go for, either you thought they were insane money when they were new, go look at them in the secondary market, but in a lot of the old ZTs too that have been discontinued, go look at those in the secondary market. They think it was worth it because they're paying 2-3 times as much as they were when they were new for a used knife. But I think this one is worth it. Now, kind of to piggyback on this, speaking of ZT, companies that start to approach this level, they don't quite get into that $400 level, but they can see it from where they're standing, as my mom used to say. The ZT-0562, which is, basically a Hinderer XM18 ZT-ified. This is the 0562 tie, $280. That's not crazy high for a ZT, but still, like, you're getting into that range. Is it worth it? I think another perfect example of knife that I just got in, this is the Spyderco Swayback, which is new for this year. It's $273. XHP steel, titanium, titanium liner lock made in Taichung. It's within sight of these knives. So when you're looking at something like this, obviously these are two totally different knives, like for as far as use and purpose, completely different. But if you're looking for, 280 versus $450. Maybe you could just save for a little while and get something a bit more special. The Wee Malice. I love the Wee Malice. Great freaking knife. But yeah, it's $283 with this Flame Anno on it. Yeah, you could just save up for a couple more weeks or a month or whatever, and, you know, skip a few meals at Applebee's, and you can get something with a lot more prestige. So do you or don't you? It's a really, really tough thing to figure out, especially with the U.S. price increases on a lot of knives. So segue into the next part where we'll talk about the recent U.S. price increases. So now the elephant in the room. Yeah, there have been some increases in U.S. prices lately. Absolutely. For USA-made knives, some of them have gone way, way up. I think I have 3 of the biggest offenders here. One with a little bit of a caveat, but it's going to lead into something else. But this is the Cold Steel 8015. I love it. I had one before. I've had 2 before. They used to be green with a bronze on them, but other than the color change, these are identical to the ones that were out before. I paid $160 for that knife when I first got it. My first green one with the bronze. Sold it, missed it, got another green with the bronze, dyed the scales blue to try and make it look better because I'm not an OD green fan. It came out great. The guy who bought it loves it, but I sold it, and I got this black one. Now, when I originally got that 8015, 160 bucks. These are now, if you buy it from a normal retailer, $230. Yes, there are places you can find them for a little bit closer to the old price, but not places that I list or that I would buy from. But yeah, that's a huge increase, and nothing's changed about the knife. Is it still a fantastic knife? Abso-freaking-lutely it is. The 8010 I could have brought it here too. I know the 8010 went up significantly, but I think this one was worse. And it's still, I love Andrew Demco. Obviously, I have one of his mid-techs you saw earlier, but I love the design. I'm actually trying to buy one of these in a mid-tech. I actually am going to. I've got it all set and reserved. I just have to wait till my freaking tax refund comes in, and I'm going to buy another one. So obviously, I love the Scorpion Lock. It's a really unique knife. It is really cool. I do like it a whole ton. But wow, that's a price increase. Do I think it's worth $230? In this case, I actually kind of do. It's S35 yen. It's a very unique lock. It takes a lot of work to make one of these things. And I think that this is a case where they did just price it wrong when they first launched it. I think they didn't realize how much work it took to make these. And they're not having a problem selling them. Every time I see another run of them come out, at $230. They still sell wicked fast, so no issues there. But yeah, I think this is one of the worst offenders. But the poster child, I guess, for U.S. price increases has to be the Spyderco Shaman. Shaman has been doing year-on-year price increases, which ain't great. And the Shaman was the worst affected. When I first got the Shaman, it was 150 bucks. They are now 205. Nothing has changed. Just year-on-year. They keep adding prices to. I think the biggest jump was, I believe it was 150. It went up to 180, and then it went up to like 190 something. Now it's 205. And again, they made the same excuse that, oh, we didn't realize how expensive it was to make these scales. Okay. Now, this comes in a whole ton of sprint runs, and the sprint runs usually cost either exactly the same or just a couple bucks more for some kind of premium steel and different scales and whatever. I guess you could perceive those as values, and they are because you can flip them. But I'm not a flipper, so I don't really talk about sprint runs much. But yeah, this is a bit hard to swallow. I sold my first Shaman because I was angry about the price increase. I literally like sold it out of spite. And then I wanted one back for comparison stuff. So I eventually went up trading for this one. I have way less than 150 in this, so I really have no dog in this fight to complain about. But still, I can see why people are so mad about it. And just year-on-year increases, which leads us to the next company. I'm using this one as an example. It's going to take a wee bit of explaining, but this is the Benchmade Mini Freak, the S90V carbon fiber version. Now, when they came out with the Super Freak, which the Super Freak is 191 M4 steel, this is Benchmade's another company that's doing year-on-year increases, and everybody's getting pretty sick of it. But I think the Mini Freak or the Super Freak, we didn't really get too upset about. I think it's M4, gorgeous G10 on it. Like, I kind of get it. I was never really that upset with the price of the Super Freak. Because some people were. I really was not in that camp. I thought M4 steel is not cheap. M4 steel is very expensive. I heard someone tell me that depending on when you get it, sometimes M4 can be literally twice the price of like S35VN or anything like that. So it's not an inexpensive steel, and it's much harder to work with. I really don't have an issue with that. But when they came out with the Mini Freak, we all knew Mini Freak was coming, but we just wanted a smaller one of this. We didn't want this. I love this knife. It's great, but it's S90V, which is even more expensive than M4. I've heard some people say that costs like twice the price of 20CV. And they put their carbon fiber scales on it and everything. And this is $275. So if you don't want the regular Freak with the rubbery handles, which you don't, if you don't want the regular Mini Freak with the rubbery handles, you have to pay $275, which is more than the full-size upgraded Freak. So they went too far. They went too far on the upgrades, and now people are screaming that it's overpriced. They didn't help themselves. And you've got things like I don't have it in front of me. I should have it out here for it. The 940-1. I think when I got mine, they were in the like 150-ish range, upper 150s. Now they're up to I think they're like right about $200. And it's, yes, Benchmade is another company doing year-on-year increases. Now they're doing some stuff, like they did a little $5 increase on the whole Griptilian line, but the base steel now is S30V. It used to be 154CM. So they try and make up for it. I don't think, and you can still find some real bargains in the Benchmade lineup. I think the Presidio, the new Presidio 2 CF Elite, is a great bargain. It's a really good bargain knife. They're like, what, 140 or something like that, 130, 140, and it's a S30V and a really well put together knife. But yeah, they are still in that U.S. price increase thing. Now, is it labor costs? Is it just because they can? I'm not here to say. In the days of COVID, which we're still in the middle of here in August of 2020, is it, because they have fewer people working in the factory? Is that raising prices? I don't know. Am I expecting to see another year-on-year price increase from at least 2 out of 3 of these companies? Yes, I am. Cold Steel doesn't seem to do it as much on other models. It just seems to be the higher-end stuff and I think it was it. I think that is an honest mistake of a misconception of what it was going to cost to make it. Maybe I'm just giving the benefit of the doubt because I love Andrew Demco designs and I love Cold Steel, but just laying out my bias there. But do I expect to see price increases from Spyderco and Benchmade again this year? Yes, I absolutely do. This year is one year they could probably justify it more than any other year, so they're going to do it. And everybody's going to be mad again, and that's what's going to happen. I even went back. The price increases were so bad when this went from like 150 to like 180. I re-reviewed a whole bunch of Spydercos at their new prices because it was that big of a jump. That might happen again this year. I would not be shocked. But when we start talking about what's expensive, we have to talk about that. These knives get more and more expensive every year, and are they still worth it? Next up, we are going to talk about budget versions of inexpensive knives, and should you pay more? Not to bring up Cold Steel again, but yes, should you pay more for the premium version versus the budget version? Best example I have is the Formax Scout. I actually just did a comparison with the Formax Scout and the regular, quote-unquote, real Formax. 20 CV and G10 titanium liners versus steel liners, AUS 10A, and Grivery handles. $110 versus $350 if you can find one. These are discontinued. So in this case, I say yes, you should buy the cheap one. And Cold Steel obviously agrees with me because they discontinued the expensive one. I've heard it may be coming back. Maybe not made in Italy. This one's made in Italy. Or no, this is a USA made, I'm sorry. But the last ones were made in Italy. So who knows what they're going to do in the future. But yeah, this is a case where definitely buy the cheap one. The quality on this one isn't even as good as this Taiwan-built version. And a lot of knives are like this. A lot of companies have a very expensive knife. They come out with a budget version, or you have a custom maker who makes a knife that's in a budget version. Here's another one you're going to see here in a moment. For example, this is a Adam Purvis Progeny V2. They used to be a custom. Now there's something that you can just buy for a little over $200. There's a whole lot of knives out there like that. So you can lump those in here with us too, but should you buy the cheap one? Should you buy the expensive one? I'm trying to focus on production companies that make a cheaper version of the exact same knife. Your Griptilians, for example, you can get the basic Grivery handle S30V, or you can buy the G1020CV one for like $100 more. That's all on you on this one. I think this one happens to be a pretty easy decision, but a lot of them, it's all just kind of on you. Do you want that feel of the nicer handles? Do you really need that fancy pants steel? Spoil you probably don't. Most people in their daily lives don't. You don't need 20 CV. You know, I think someone said, I can't remember who it was. I was in a chat with somebody, and I do believe maybe he said it in a video. I think it was Pete from Cedric Ada said if you took 80% of knife collectors and swapped their M390 out for 8CR13 MOV, would we even notice? A lot of fancy pants knife collectors probably wouldn't notice, to be honest with you, because we don't use them enough. I'm not sure I'd notice on some of them. I'd notice on some of my knives, because some of my expensive knives I really do beat on and use, but some of them I don't. I think there's a few of them I probably wouldn't notice. Yeah, you just have that this one's kind of all on you. I can't really give you an answer on this, but there are a whole lot of knives that perform 80% as well as the expensive version for 40% of the price. So keep your eye out for those, especially from designers that you know, like Adam Purvis, like guys that you've heard of, that you've always wanted one of their knives, you couldn't afford it. Probably somebody's going to make a production version of it sometime. So keep an eye out for production versions. I mean, there's production Gareth Bulls now. Whoever thought that was going to happen. So keep an eye out for stuff like that. But yeah, this one's kind of on you, whether or not you want the cheap version or the expensive version. That just kind of depends. Okay, now we're going to talk about upgrading your knives and how things can get out of hand. The first thing I want to say is if you are buying custom parts for a knife, hinderers are the worst for this. That's why there's two. Or the best for this, depending how you look at it. But that's why there's two of them out here. You're not going to get that money back. First of all, just know that if you customize a knife with custom parts and you think, oh, I bought a Benchmade bug out for 120 and I put $150 worth of parts on it with custom scales and all kinds of custom hardware, I should be able to sell it for $300. No, that's not going to happen, because you customize it to how you like it. Doesn't mean other people are going to like it. I went through the same thing with in bicycle sales back when I used to, be a mountain bike racer and work at bike shops and stuff. You would go to buy a used bike and somebody put a whole bunch of custom parts on it and maybe even some custom paint or something. You're not going to get that back. You customize it the way that you like it. It may even devalue, in cars especially. If you customize a car, you buy a $20,000 car and you put $14,000 worth of parts on it and try to sell it the next day for $30,000. You're not going to get it. You might only get 18 because people don't like the modifications you did to it. So keep that in mind, first of all. If you are buying a knife and you're throwing money at it to make it your own, not to use the hinderer phrase, the hinderer marketing phrase, it's your own. Some people may love it. You might get lucky, but don't count on it. Don't hold your breath. You made it how you want it. Doesn't mean everybody's going to want it exactly the same as you. I know that with all these knives. One is extremely easy to switch back to whatever they want. I have way too many. I can make it whatever color you want if I chose to sell it. I'm never going to, but anyway, I digress. Hinderers are, like I said, the best and worst for this. That's why there's two of them out here. First up, we have an XM18. Both of these XM18, so they start out, $425, $450, something like that. This is a no choil warning, which is rare enough on its own because it's a DLT trading exclusive. I put a DLT trading exclusive carbon Warthog scale on it. I put all the blacked out hinderer hardware on it, all genuine hinderer parts. But yeah, this is probably $650, $675. I've never added anything up yet. It made it a much more expensive knife. And if I went to go sell it, honestly, I'd revert it back to stock, sell it as stock, keep these parts for something else that I want. Or sell them separately. Sometimes you can sell the parts separately for good money. I've done that. I've sold hinderer scales a lot. I sold a set, or sold one a set. There's only a single one. I sold one last week. Sometimes you can get good money for the parts off the knife, but if you sell it as a package deal, you're probably going to lose money. This is the same way. This is a non-flipper, Fullered Spirit, another DLT exclusive one, and I put DLT exclusives full titanium scale on it. $150 I think these go for. That's all I've done to this one. It's the Battle Bronze. It came that way. Is everybody going to want that Warhog? They might not. If I went to go sell it, this one in particular, this is my favorite scale for a Ender I've ever had. I would abso-freaking-lutely, and it was a gift, so I'd abso-freaking-lutely keep the scale. I'd revert it back to stock. But even if I didn't care about the scale, it's still easier to sell them separately. You'll make more money back on it. Now, the silliest one that I've upgraded and paid a lot to upgrade, this is my Adam Purvis Progeny V2 you just saw earlier. I love this knife. It's a great knife. I don't normally like Damascus. But this came with a plain tie pocket clip, plain tie backspacer. It looked cool, but I love this knife so much. He offered this kit for, I believe, $175. Pretty expensive. I'm not normally into Damascus. I kind of think it looks like those magic paintings you were supposed to look at in the mall where you're supposed to see a sailboat. When a lot of my friends show me their custom knives that are all Damascus out, I'll say nice sailboat. I don't know if they get the joke or not, but if I repeat enough, maybe they'll figure it out. But on this particular knife, it looked awesome. So I did it. So I took a $220 knife and, you know, made it a nearly $500 knife. But I love this knife enough that it doesn't bother me. So it's fine. I like it. I think it was worth it. It came out beautifully. It looks great. It's a knife I'm going to keep for a really long time, and I'm okay with it. Now, the TRM Atom, these are the newest scales I got for it. These are the new Fopal scales, which is like faux opal. Just got these. They were $90. Now, normally TRM scales are not that expensive. This is pretty unique stuff. So not gonna complain about that. And honestly, to be honest with you, I'm not sure I love them. But it looks cool, but we'll see if it gets dirty or not. But I have 8 sets of scales for this knife. They're so easy to swap out. So this is a $220 knife that, even though the other scales were much less expensive, $30 to $50, I probably have, I'm trying to do the math right now, I probably have $450, $500 in this knife just because I have so many different sets of scales for it. But this is probably my favorite knife that I own. I think it did win the last time there could be only one. I think it's the knife that won. And I get to change it. It's like a Barbie doll. So I don't mind it. But yeah, I do have a whole lot of money in a TRM Atom and TRM Atom parts. I could say in parts too in the Hinderers. Gosh, I have bags of Hinderer parts sitting just off to the side where you can't see them. All I need is a blade and a lock side, and I could build a whole other XM18. I'll probably build 3 of them just with parts that I've got laying around. And I just have so many Atom scales, though. It's just gotten silly. These I saw them. They do look cool. I'm just not sure it's my style. But they do look awesome for sure. And they're very well done. I'm just not sure it's my jam. But that's what I have on here at the moment. And I'm giving them a shot to see if I get used to them. They are gorgeous. My wife likes them, but I don't know. I don't plan on being a virgin and getting married anytime soon. So I'm not sure exactly where I would carry that. But they do look cool if you're into that. Next, we're going to move on to perceived, to be our last topic, perceived expensive. Knives that everyone thinks are expensive, but actually aren't. So now we'll go on to our final topic, which is knives that are perceived to be more expensive than they actually are. We have 2 companies that I think really epitomize this, with Microtech and Protech, and another one that I think people perceive are expensive just because they're of rarity. These are perceived to be expensive because of rarity and because they make a lot more of them, a lot more expensive versions of them. Now we have the Microtech Socom Elite, about $290. Definitely not inexpensive, but I've had several people that guess that these cost $400. They don't. $290, definitely not inexpensive, but you're getting, you know, I think this one's M390. They always use some kind of M390 variant. It depends. This one was born on November of 2019. I like that they put the date and the month and the year and stuff on it. It's kind of cool. Yeah, then this one did take a really long time to get, and I think that is part of the perceived expensiveness of it. It took me 14 months to get this exact configuration that I wanted. Now this LUDT, which is even less expensive at $240, this one happened, I just stumbled upon it and snapped it up. I did want an LUDT, sort of, kind of. I saw the purple. I didn't even know they did them in purple. I grabbed it. And that's kind of what I recommend with Microtechs. If you want to be picky about what you want, it might take you 14 months. I wanted a Tanto Stonewash Black Handle Socom Elite, and it took 14 months to find one. Now, was I searching every single day? No, but 14 months to find the one that I wanted. Like I said, the LUDT dropped in my lap. I liked it. I have a UTX-70 that isn't exactly the configuration I wanted, but it was close. So I bought it. Now, that's what you have to do with Microtechs. If you see a configuration that's close to what you want, just buy it. They are going to make them again. If you miss out on the configuration that you want, it's probably going to come out again. But the tiny baby Jesus knows when. Who knows when the hell it's going to come out. So you just kind of got to take what you can get at some point, and then maybe, you know, flip it and buy the one you want later on if you can, or whatever you choose to do. And now, another reason why they're perceived to be expensive is they do make more expensive versions of them. There's Marfione Customs that are thousands. There are more special versions of the Socom Elite that cost signature versions and stuff that cost twice as much. So I think that's another reason why I just don't think people realize Microtechs, are they inexpensive? Abso-freaking-lutely not. They are not inexpensive knives, but they're not as crazy as everybody thinks they are. ProTech, even more so. This SBR, S35 VN steel, great design, super snappy little auto. It's 170 bucks. It's like PM2 money. It's not insane. But again, to a lesser extent than Microtech, but ProTech still does stuff in fairly short runs. And if you miss out on the configuration, you might have to wait a little bit to get it. And to a further extent, even the Microtech, ProTech makes some really expensive knives. This is the most expensive one that I have. This is $450. This is a $490, $450 or $490, I can't remember. This is a Harkins ATAC dual action folder, which means it's either manual or auto. It's an amazing, beautiful thing. But fully custom versions of this knife, or even fully custom versions of this of the SBR or the Newport, they do them with almost anything. They do them with hand engraving and all kinds of just amazing things, Damascus blades. You can buy a knife in this same configuration, and when it's available, this is another knife, very limited availability. They only make a couple hundred of them every 4 years. This is the most basic one you can get because it's what I could afford. But if you wanted to buy a completely crazy hand-engraved one of these, they've done them with jewels and gold and, like I said, Damascus, all kinds of stuff, you could spend 5 digits on one of these. So some people just look at them like that. They just think of the really expensive version, and they just don't even look. They just assume, well, if I see one for sale for $2,000, then must be the budget version of it's still probably $700 or $800, and they don't even look at it. Where it's not, the budget version is $150. You know, it's just that perceived value. TRM, the same way. I think TRM's gotten popular enough now that people know that they're not horribly expensive. They're just hard to get. The reason why I say that is because they're not insane on the resale, on the secondary market. The resale value is you can usually get more than you paid for it, but not by much. So say this TRM Neutron. I did put some custom scales on these from Match Anderson, if you want to go check him out on the Facebooks. But it's the standard one you're looking at. I can't remember the exact price. I'm horrible. I should have looked up. This is the one knife I didn't look up for this video. I think they're about $170. If you got on the list and got one and flipped it the next day when everybody was upset that they missed out, yeah, you might get $190 for it. You might get a bit more than you paid for it, but they're not insane resale values. But still, I do think that some people perceive these as being TRMs as being very expensive because they rarely see them, and they just think they're worth a lot more than they are. They are worth more than they are. I think they're kind of bargains, honestly, with how well they're built and the materials you're getting. But you get my point. It's just there's a perceived value of something that's hard to get, and we all like to rub it in people's faces that we have something you can't get. You know. I've done that joke several times when I've been carrying a knife, and I have friends that are kind of knife people, but not huge knife people. And I remember I was at Thanksgiving last year, and I had I had a TRM. I had my Atom in pocket. I think it's when I first or one of the days I was carrying my Atom, and I have a buddy of mine who was a knife guy. He had a ZT something in his pocket, and I pulled out my Atom, and he handled it, and he goes, "Oh, this is amazing. Like, where can I buy one?" And I would say, "You can't." I used to do that with t-shirts too. I have a lot of really nerdy t-shirts. I go to this website that you can they only sell the t-shirt for 24 hours and then it's gone and you can never buy it again. And I'll be wearing a nerdy shirt from that site and they'll be like, where can I buy that? And you say, you can't. It's just, it's a jerk move, but we all do it. And it is kind of a cool thing just to know that you've got something that's hard to get. And I think that's why there's a much higher perceived value on these. On the Microtechs and the Protechs, I don't think they go... I've never sold a Microtech or a Protech for a profit. I don't think they really go up in value much, except for this I probably could right now because they're gone for the next 4 years. But other than that, and this is a more expensive one, so it's kind of an outlier, but you know what I mean? Other than that, like I don't think any of the three of these I could sell for a profit. But there's that perceived value that people don't try and get one because they think it's worth more than it is. So don't just assume stuff is expensive. Sometimes it isn't nearly as bad as you think it is. That's it for this video. I know it's been really long. I haven't stitched together yet. It may be half an hour long. I apologize for that, but I hope you guys have enjoyed watching it and have stuck around this long. And if you did, God bless you. But thanks so much for watching. I wanted this to be a discussion, so please down below, what do you consider budget? What do you consider to be expensive? What are your limits? I want to know that. It's also research for me for when I do Knife of the Year stuff at the end of the year, because I keep moving the bar on what's budget and what isn't. One year it was $50, now it's 100 and below for budget. So that's kind of what I consider budget, is below $100, but some of you guys may consider it below 20. I don't know. Some of you guys may not blink an eye at buying stuff until it's $250. Just comment down below. Let's have a discussion. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I've been Brian. Have a good one.